But thank you so much for sticking with us. This is our final session. We have to talk about the personal resilience thing, which I've not done well on. So PJ is going to be conducting 2 CEO interviews, and we're so fortunate to have PJ here and to have both of these CEOs with us to close it out. And then we were supposed to do a personal resilience. PJ's doing a personal resilience session after this, and then we're going to go 5 minutes to break the rooms, and then we're going to do our breakouts. For those of you who can handle it, these are really important topics to work on, and then we're going straight to reception at 6. So we are going to wrap on time to get back on time for the reception. Okay, all I'm going to say is, yeah, we were interns in the White House in 1993, so I have to say that. And PJ is an incredible leader. He runs it for 10 years, a global gathering of Fortune 1000 CEOs working on sustainability, companies working on sustainability. So he's a perfect person to do these interviews, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Amy. If you're all feeling tired right now, just remember how Rob Swan felt during that last moment approaching one of the polls. Before I introduce, I call up our first CEO that I'm going to be interviewing. And I do have a timer, by the way. It's going to actually ding, so we're going to stick to time. We're going to get through this quickly. But as Amy said, I'm going to lead a very quick 10 or 12-minute introduction to how you do quick workouts outside or after the session. Before I do that, though, I wanted to ask you, how many of you feel generally that you're not working out enough, you're not doing enough to keep yourself in shape? Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you believe in the power of compound interest? Do you know what the power of compound interest is? And how many of you think that may actually apply to exercise as well, that something's better than nothing? If I were told you that were also true as it applies to exercise, and that research shows that shorter bursts of intense exercise can deliver the same benefits as longer, moderate exercises, how many of you would actually incorporate a little bit more exercise in your life? 5 of you? Okay, thank you. Could all of you actually just stand up that said that you would do this? You would do a little bit more. A lot of you are very comfortable with your fitness. Okay, that's great. And if I told you that I could actually tell you in 12 minutes, give you something that will actually empower you to be able to do 6-minute exercises, when you're on the road, when you're traveling, when you feel like you have no time. Please sit down if you'll join me outside right after this session. If you're going to join me, sit down. If you're still standing, if you're not going to join me, get my phone number from Amy. I'm going to talk to you after this session. Let me invite Laurel Sayer up to the stage to join me. We're about to speak with 2 fascinating CEOs from 2 very different industries, both undergoing major transformations in light of greater attention to sustainability globally and greater attention to resilience. The 2 industries are mining and textiles. And the 2 CEOs that are from these companies are both leading their companies in a direction that's sort of transforming what used to be risk yesterday into opportunities today and tomorrow. So first up is Laurel Sayer, and I'm delighted to have a chance to talk with you. We haven't actually met yet, so this is really going to be off the cuff, and as promised, I'm actually setting a timer here so that we will stick to time. But Laurel is the president and CEO of Midas Gold, Idaho. She was on the board of directors for 2 years prior to her appointment as CEO last fall. She's a self-described lifelong conservationist. And she previously was the executive director of the Idaho Coalition of Land Trusts, and also worked for several years with Congressman Mike Simpson and Senator Mike Crapo. And to get started, I want to ask you 3 lightning round questions so people can get to know you a little bit better. First of all, what's your favorite species?
Oh, I'm going to say a wolf.
The wolf. Okay, awesome. We can talk during the reception about why.
Yeah, we can.
Second of all, what's your favorite thing to do for your own personal resilience?
I love the mountains, camping, outdoors,
Super.
hiking, biking.
And third and final lightning round question, what's your favorite moment or quote from so far during this session?
During this session?
During this meeting.
Oh, there's been so many. Resilience takes change.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about Midas Gold Idaho and about the parent company. Give us a sense of some of the ways that the company's sort of transformed, maybe how it's different 10 years from sort of 10 years ago, particularly in light of sustainability and resilience thinking.
Well, Midas Gold is basically a new junior mining company. It has one project, the Stibnite Gold Project. It proposes to restore the Stibnite mining district in Valley County, Idaho, which is 2 hours as the crow flies from McCall. So you'd have to jump the Frank Church to get over to that area right here, to help you with a little geography. It provides a lot of great opportunities, this project. We'll be able to restore salmon migration into a branch of the headwaters of the Salmon River that has not been, since 1938, the salmon have not been able to migrate that way. We also are going to clean up a historic mining area, the Stibnite mining area, which is over 100 years. It has a strong history during the Second World War for tungsten and antimony. We also will revitalize the local economy and a local community. So all of those things put together, Midas Gold has invested over $140 million in the area, studying and evaluating alternatives that we could integrate restoration and reproduction of this mining area and mining. So mining certainly needs to be revitalized, and meaning resilient. It needs to have a resilient and a new look on what it does, and this is the project that can do that.
It's exciting. What are some of the key metrics or indicators that you sort of, over time would evaluate success as you talk about all the possible benefits? What are some of the key things you focus on? You mentioned salmon, some of the economic benefits, but what are some of the specific metrics or indicators that you might be able to sort of track success over time?
Well, for us and our company, being able to track success would be that we would have to restore this site. Mm-hmm. It is a disturbed area that has not been able to clean up the area. So we're the major source of sediment into the East Fork, the South Fork of the Salmon River, which sediment impacts fisheries tremendously. We will clean that up. Mm-hmm. We propose to revitalize the economy, as I mentioned earlier. We will be able to reestablish this whole area after we finish mining it. But the way we evaluate our success is we're able to come in and put this project forward, and we will reclimate, we will restore it as we go. That is unlike any other mining project has ever done, mainly because we have a disturbed area mm-hmm. that we can do this with. And we'll be able to bring a reproduction. What we will mine is gold, antimony, and silver. I don't know if you know what antimony is. Do you?
I looked it up in the run-up to this because I didn't know, actually. Mm-hmm. So it might be interesting. I know it's used in an awful lot of things.
It's used in a lot of the technologies we talked about today. We use it. Antimony is a fire retardant. It's used in cushions and in carpeting, those types of things, flame retardant. But it's also used in ammunition. In munitions, that's one of the reasons they used it. They mined that area during the Second World War. It's used in coatings of wiring, and that to keep from starting on fire. Mm-hmm. It's used in lithium batteries. It's used in medical technologies, as is gold. These minerals that we will mine are very important to industry and what we do, and to sustain that. And by the way, there's no antimony, a domestic source for antimony in the United States. So we could also say it is a national security to have our own source for that.
I know you've spoken to a lot of diverse audiences, and I'm sure you've gotten some tough questions. Mm-hmm. Can you share a really tough question that you got that kind of caused you to really think differently or get a different perspective that you might not have had before?
Probably the most we've been accused of greenwashing as well, because I am here and I support that. So having worked with land trusts, I know exactly what that means and what that feels like. But probably the most difficult question was, just the other day during our scoping process, we're in the permitting process. You go through a NEPA process where you have scoping. We're with the Forest Service. We had some residents in Boise who were probably third, fourth generation Idahoans, really vibrant Democrats and strong supporters of Cecil Andrus and Frank Church. They approached us and they said, "Why should we trust you? You're a mining company. Why should we trust you?" So a couple of us were able to diverge and tell and share with them our history, who we are, who we've worked with, that we worked with Mike Simpson, that I worked on helping to create the Boulder White Clouds Wilderness, which was a flagship accomplishment in my career to help work with him to do that. And we shared those things and how we build trust in the community. We work with them. We take their ideas. Those were hard questions, and they walked away and said, "We trust you."
Amazing. And the last question I wanted to ask you, as we're all sort of looking for hope these days, particularly in a very fractious political environment, you've done a lot of work bringing various stakeholders together over the years, over your career. It's been really impressive how often you've done that. Can you share a little anecdote of a time where you had some very diverse stakeholders that, as Mike Broom was saying last night, maybe could disagree, but weren't so disagreeable, or you were able to kind of move that from a place that could have been very disagreeable to a place where people came together and were able to get something done?
Probably during, I was based in Idaho when I worked for Congressman Mike Simpson to create and to bring stakeholders and people together for the Boulder White Clouds. It was contentious. It took us 12 years to get that done. I met and was able to work with some great conservation environmental groups, but I also had the pleasure, and you might make me cry, I had the pleasure of working with the ranchers who grazed on the East Fork of the Salmon River and into the Boulder White Clouds. This was a small group of ranchers that had grazing allotments up there on federal land. They had it for generations. They were third and fourth generation Idahoans that had grazed in the wilderness. It was their livelihood. They were raising their kids, and they said, "People accuse us of not being conservationists. We care about this land, and because we have to reuse it." And the biggest conflict they supported the project, they supported the wilderness, and their frustrations were that they were going to look into and agree to have the opportunity to sell their grazing rights off, to no longer have those in their families. And they knew the minute they did that, they would walk into a small rural community of all these other ranchers, and they would be looked down upon for doing the right thing. And as much as we talk about doing what we do every day, sometimes it's really hard for these people on the far right, the ranchers and that, to go back and face their community. We have all of us to support us, but sometimes their community isn't as sophisticated as ours to support each other.
Well, listening and empathy have been big themes across this entire session, and you've certainly been leading with that kind of approach for your career. So thank you for all you're doing, and
thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, Eileen, Mockus. Welcome.
Thank you.
Eileen is the CEO of Coyuchi. And for those of you who may not know, it's been around for 26 years, since 1991. The first company in this country to sell organic cotton bedding, 100%. It's one of the 10 top users of organic cotton in the United States, $15 million of annual revenues. And you've been CEO for 4 years now.
Yes.
So, lightning round. What's your favorite species?
Homo sapien.
Good one. What's your favorite thing to do to contribute to your own personal resilience?
I'm a bit of a trail runner, cross-country skiing, anything where I can exercise outdoors.
Nice. You're going to be joining me outside too, right? And your favorite moment or quote from the event so far?
I think it was a combination of the polar exploration and the work at Microsoft, and just that determination of what people can do with the information and the technology available to them.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about Coyuchi, some of the core principles upon which it's been founded, and how that's sort of evolved over time.
Sure. So Coyuchi was started almost 26 years ago, and the woman that founded Coyuchi, a woman by the name of Christine Nielsen, her intent was to bring organic cotton to market, and very specifically in home textiles. There were some other companies working in apparel. And so over time, she accomplished that, but it remained a very small business. And over the last 5 to 6 years, the company has really transformed into an online retailer primarily. We do still have our wholesale channel, but as all of retail has shifted, we are also shifting. But the principles remain the same. We are very committed to organic cotton, safe, and what we frequently refer to as minimally processed textiles. We follow something called the GOTS standard, which is the Global Organic Textile Standard, which allows us to monitor every step of the production process. That's both the environmental impact of anything that's put on the textiles to make them into these great fabrics, colors, prints, pattern, as well as the human side of it, because there is a lot of labor involved in any sort of textile item. And so that's really what we look for in everything that we do, is what's the impact on the process involved as well as the people that are involved. And at the end of the day, we want to make the best home textiles in the market. We are at the high end. We want that to be the selling feature. We want people to enjoy the experience of the home textiles that they sleep on, that they bathe with, and then have all of these other pieces to it that add to why you would want to continue to support Coyuchi.
One of the things I've seen over the years is how when companies really embrace sustainability as a core principle and look at things through that lens, it's often a tremendous driver of innovation. And things that are results, that products or services that are actually better for customers and consumers. You recently launched Coyuchi for Life, which is one of those things. I'm excited to be a customer. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is, how it's working, and some of the challenges you might be facing?
So we have done a lot of work on the fiber. We've done a lot of work on how things are made. And the last piece that we really had not addressed was what happens to this product when the customer has been using it, and particularly when they're done with it. Home textiles in particular typically end up in a landfill. And what we wanted to do was create a means for that product to come back to us. And effectively, there's enough changing in textiles, in the production of textiles, that is making an after-use possible for product that our consumers may be done with. The reality is that we are all tired of something before it's at the end of its useful life. So what we created was a program called Coyuchi for Life, and it is what we're considering to be the first sustainable subscription service that will challenge the way that you consume any of the products, but for us it's our home textiles. So you can pick from our sheets and our towels, and you can have them for 12 months or 24 months. And the gist of it is that we will always make sure that you have great sheets and towels in your home. And we will always take them back, and we will either find a way to renew them, we will upcycle them, which is working with other people that have other uses for those materials. And then our last option is to recycle them into other textile products.
Awesome. Rob Swan this morning talked a lot about that it wasn't just him that made this journey. It was a teamwork effort. And I know that a lot of the things that the company has struggled with, many folks that are driving towards sustainability in textiles have dealt with challenges around cost and of availability of product and so forth. So you've created this really strong network of partners and been involved in some really important collaborations. Can you talk a little bit about that whole thing? And
Sure. And the textile industry in particular really needs to join forces. Coyuchi, like most of the other brands that many of us shop from, we don't own our own manufacturing. And so the real change needs to happen in the supply chain, and that supply chain is generally shared. So we've done a few different things. We are members of the Textile Exchange, which is one of the primary organizations that shares information, creates a meeting place for people to share what they're doing in sustainable textiles. We're members, or we were founding members of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. Their home group has not been active enough, so we've had to leave that behind. But in working with collaboration with West Elm, and staying in touch with other home companies, we think that's gonna come back to the surface again, which I'd be excited about, because it's a lot easier to make change with other companies trying to do the same thing. And then the partner that we have chosen with Coyuchi for Life is a company called the Renewal Workshop. And they set up a system for renewing product. Their initial efforts are in apparel. They've partnered with Prana, which is, many of you probably know them as the lifestyle apparel company. I know them as a climbing clothing company from years ago. But they've got other companies in the outdoor industry where they are taking their product back and then they're renewing it and repairing it potentially, but creating a market for that used product. Other examples are things like Wear Worn from Patagonia. Eileen Fisher has Green Eileen. And we feel that there's a similar thing can happen in home, where if you are tired of that bedding that you've been sleeping on, there is probably somebody else that would still want to use that product, provided that we can take it back and put it back into a reusable form for them. And those partnerships have been important for us to be able to put this together and be able to explain what could happen, because there's pieces that aren't solved yet. When we go to take that first batch of product that comes back to us that does need to be recycled, those are things that we'll be figuring out along the way.
Perfect. Last question, going back to leadership. So you were promoted to be CEO. I don't know if you had thought your whole life you were going to, climb the ladder to become a CEO. You've been at it for 4 years now. If you had a really close friend, Amy or others, that sort of suddenly found themselves running a big company as a CEO, and you're looking back at what you've learned over the last 4 years, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give to yourself in the past life, or give to one of your close friends taking on that job?
I think it's to listen to those around you, those that are working for you, because I think there's a tendency for everyone to want to look to you to say, here's what we need to do, when really someone in the room already has the answer, and if you give them the space to tell you what should be done, that it'll surface and it'll be the right thing.
Wonderful. Well, please join me in thanking both of our CEOs. Thanks so much.